Hey everyone, so if you don't know me, my name is Alex Bryan and I am the high school point of contact for the Science Fair. So the Science Fair is coming up and it's coming up quick. So we really need to start rolling with our projects. And one of the things that I noticed in my group was that we're having trouble getting started. Now the good news is that's the hardest part. Once you get started, things will really start to roll forward. So I have done two things. I got you a few useful things here on the left that I'm going to show you, but I also tried to recreate one of the experiments that I did back in middle school. And this is a really simple experiment. It's a really simple example, but it'll just show you how a unique way to just kind of get started and then let it grow from there. So this is what I did. So the first thing I did, now I'm a computer scientist now, so I don't do a lot of experiments anymore. So I had to really think like, okay, well, if I was doing this, how would I get started? So I actually just went to Pinterest. So I went to Pinterest and I got a science experiment for elementary schoolers template. Now, one of the things I like to do is when something seems complicated, when something seems like a challenge, I like to kind of bring it down a few levels. And if I can understand it at that lower level, then I kind of increase the complexity a little bit. So elementary school science experiment template, here it is. And I recreated one of these, a really famous experiment that was done a long time ago, which was to debunk the theory that animals, not just like organic matter like mold and things like that, but animals, insects could manifest from stuff. So from dirt, from mud, from grass, what have you. But if you gave it a long enough time, that this stuff was going to be created. And it was a really wild time. It was a long time ago, but they thought that maybe even that like gnats and maggots actually came from like old meat. And so they came up with an experiment to debunk this. And so I recreated this in middle school, and then I recreated it now for you, and I want to show you. So really quick, so all I did was I have 3 jars, and I just started filling out stuff on this elementary school template just to get my notes going and get my brain working. So I have 3 jars. I have one that was completely open with a bunch of nasty, muddy dirt. One that had the holes in the top, so it's got tinfoil with holes poked in the top. One that's completely covered, so there's absolutely nothing, no way anything can get inside there now. And I know these jars are not the same size. We'll get to that in just a second. And then I had one jar sitting over here that it just has nothing in it. It's just completely sitting on its own. That is my control group. So, and I just started writing stuff down like, oh, this is how I'm going to do this experiment. So what I did was I measured these right up front. I took them, I looked at the material that was in these jars under a microscope, and I saw if there was anything moving, if there was anything alive in there. And I didn't find much at first, but the cool thing was whenever I checked it a week later. So I let these things sit for about a month, and I checked them once each week throughout that month. And the cool part was the one that was open, I actually started to find stuff. So there was actually, pretty gross actually, but there was actually like some maggots and like some little flies that had started in here. So I don't know what was in this dirt that attracted those flies. In the one with the holes, there was still some stuff, all right? There was some stuff moving, and I think there was maybe like a little worm that maybe got in there, but again, much less than the one that was completely open. And the cool one, and the one that really helps my experiment, is that the one that was covered after a month had absolutely nothing crawling around in it. Now, this seems like a simple experiment, but for the time, this was a big deal, proving that no matter how long you leave it, insects or animals, or really any kind of organic matter is not going to be created just from nothing or from stuff, right? So this is a cool experiment. Now, there are so many ways that you could expand on something as simple as this. And so just getting even the simplest experiment on paper is really going to help you get started. And so then I even started writing down some of the possible issues. And this is where I was like, wow, I could really expand on this old experiment, but make it really cool and relevant for today. The jars were different sizes. I didn't take into account any heat. So back when this was a theory, spontaneous mutation was, they thought that it was like heat and water and all this stuff together somehow like made animals. I don't know. And I didn't take in, I really can't measure time. So maybe that one's out of my hands. What if it took 1,000,000 years to do this experiment? And that's something that I may have to write out in my notes, is that given 1,000,000 years, would this actually create life? And then that is where a really cool experiment could come in, because now there are ways scientifically that you can show that no matter how long this sits here, you're never going to see insects or even full-fledged animals in that jar. So that could be your science experiment. So use these simple examples to kind of open your mind up to some, to more detailed experiments. So before I let you go, I want to show you just a few useful tips, and these to me are the 4 most useful tips for the science fair. So the first one is relax. All right, don't overthink it at first. So the science fair is supposed to be fun. I mean, it's supposed to be a learning experience, and we're judging and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's supposed to be a fun learning experience. So have a good time with it. Relax at first, get a simple idea on the table, and then kind of let your brain kind of take you, to bigger places. So the second one is, if it doesn't interest you, it probably won't us. And this is a big one. If you are working with your experiment and you're like, this is just not interesting to me, it's probably not going to be interesting to other people. So find something that is interesting to you. Find something that you are motivated to work on. That's a big one. The third one is write down everything. This is my biggest flaw. I never write down anything. I wish I wrote more notes. So while you're doing your experiments, write down everything you observe, everything you see, everything you think of. You can get organized later. All right, so most scientists will have a pile of notes and they'll organize them later. So make sure that you're writing everything down. And then the last one, and probably the most important, is that problems will happen. Science is all about running into walls and knocking them down. All right, so problems are going to happen, and that's okay. But good scientists really push through those problems. All right, so and so I hope that kind of helps you out. Like I said, simple experiment. Think about, think small at first, and then let it grow from there. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing I wanted to tell you was, this science fair is supposed to be fun. All right, so be motivated to do something really cool, but know that it's supposed to be a good time. And if you're learning, that's all we want. So just do your best to get something on the table. If you have any questions at all, you can reach out to me. My email is chbrian@gacyber.org. Remember, our sessions are on Tuesdays at 3 o'clock. So do your best to be in those sessions because they are required. And again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you in our next session. Bye.